So, in this video, we are going to talk about cell formula locking in Excel. So let's discuss cell referencing. Excel tries to be really smart. Okay, it wants to anticipate your thinking, and this is really powerful, but it's also really dangerous. Okay, most of the time, if you know how to use it, it's amazing and it saves so much time, but you have to be really careful. Okay, so cell referencing is when we're typing a function and we tell it to reference a different cell, right? Equals this cell plus this cell, right? Something like that. There's three different types of cell referencing that you can do. All right, the first one is relative. That's the one that it's used to. Absolute, and then the last one is mixed, and there's two kinds. There's absolute column and absolute row. So let's talk about what these are. These are all based on this dollar sign. Okay, so a dollar sign in front of a row or column reference indicates that the reference is absolute. Basically, all of this means is when you copy the formula to a different cell, if it's an absolute reference, it stays where it is. Otherwise, it moves. So relative, just the letter and the number, no dollar signs. This is the default setting. This is what you're used to anytime you've worked with Excel before. All right? Absolute referencing is when you have a dollar sign in front of both the letter and the number. All right? And this means you are referencing one specific cell and never any other cell. And then there's mixed referencing, where you have an absolute column, right? So you have a dollar sign on the column, which means maybe your row can change, but your column stays fixed. And then there's absolute row, where your column can move, but your row stays fixed. And that's why the dollar sign is there in front of the number, all right? Because the number is the row. And you can use the function key, the F4 key, to alternate between the options. All right, so let's go look at an example of how this can go really well or really bad. All right, so I've got three tables here that are just 1 through 10. And what we want is we want to make a multiplication table. So the first way to do this is with, we're going to try just relative referencing like you're used to. So we're going to reference the row and the column, right? This first one would be A2 times B1, right? And then we're just gonna, we could do this, right? We could click out every single one, but that's 100 times, and I don't want to do that. So instead, we're just going to see what happens when we extend the formula. And this does not look like any multiplication table that I've ever seen. All right, there's something really weird going on here. So first off, all of these pound num things here just means that the number is so big that Excel can't handle it. And you can tell that because when you look like right above here, 4e plus, that means times 10 to the 276. So 4 times 10 to the 276. Yeah, that's a really big number. So let's look back here and let's see what is happening. Right, so when you click in a cell reference, you can see the colors that are being referenced. So the first one's right, but what did the second one do? We dragged it down, and it's referencing now the one immediately above it and immediately to the side, which looks exactly the same as what we did before, right? Above and to the side. And if we come out here, it's the same thing, above and to the side. That's relative referencing, okay? That is what happens when you copy a formula with relative referencing. It always references it in the same shape that it was doing before. So clearly for this, that's not what we want. Let's try absolute referencing. So in this table, we're going to say equals the first one, and then we hit our F4 button once, and that gives us our dollar signs. You can type the dollar signs, so I can type $N $1, and that does that, but you can also just hit F4 after you've selected a cell reference. I think that's a lot easier personally. So we're now referencing those two, above and to the left, and that's right for the first one. But let's see what happens when we click and drag this down to our whole table. Well, it's all just one. Why is it all just one? Well, let's look at a formula. When we click in, we see it's still referencing just those two. Okay? That's what absolute referencing is. When you have the dollar sign in front of both the column and the number, no matter where you copy that formula to, it's going to reference the exact same cells. It's not moving like it did in the first one. So clearly neither of those is right. So it shouldn't surprise you that the right answer uses the mixed case. And in fact, what we're going to do is we're going to say we want each of the rows to reference the first column, right? So when we click here, we have to decide what sort of mixed referencing we want. And we always want, in the row, we always want to reference that first column. But we might want to switch the row, right? As we go down to the next one, I want to reference the next row. So that means we need absolute column. And if we keep hitting F4, there's now a dollar sign on the column. And so what that's going to do, and we can actually just look at this, just having the dollar sign on the column for a really simple one. It keeps that column reference, but it changes the row. So it's still referencing the first column, but now it's changed the row. And that's what we want there. So now let's look at how we get the right columns number, right? So times we need this one. But again, as we go across, we want it to change. But as we go down a row, we want this reference to stay the same. So as we go down a row, we want it to stay at that 13 row, right? We want to reference that one. And so now what we'll see, if we do this, that's our right table. And let's look at how we know it's right. So this is obviously referencing 1 and 1, exactly how we wanted it. When we click down a couple, we're still referencing that first column as we wanted, right? But we're now referencing the third row. We always want to reference in this table the exact row and column where we are. And let's see if that holds true out here. We're referencing this column and its row. And so we're doing it right. And as you see, right, this is the table that we've come to expect when we look at multiplication. Okay? That is cell referencing in a nutshell. Hopefully that makes sense. Hopefully you can see the power of it and the danger. So now that you know this, go forth and make use of it. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.